For Jonathan Gray, getting stuck in an elevator was simply a waste of time. Meetings, deals, million-dollar decisions were waiting while he was trapped. It was extremely frustrating. But when the cleaning lady's son next to him asked, "Uncle, why do you look sad?" it would turn the 39-year-old millionaire's world upside down. The morning sun cast sharp shadows through the windows of Gray and Associates Investment Bank. At exactly 7:15 a.m., Jonathan Gray's black sedan pulled up to the building's entrance, as it had every weekday for the past 12 years. At 39, Jonathan was the youngest senior partner in the firm's history, a man whose reputation for turning failing investments into gold mines had earned him both respect and fear in Manhattan's financial district. Today, Jonathan wasn't thinking about views or empires. His mind was locked on the Morrison presentation, a $500 million infrastructure deal that could secure his position as the firm's next managing partner. After 15 years of 18-hour days, this was his moment. As he approached the elevator bank, Jonathan checked his watch, 7:18 a.m. Perfect timing. The elevator doors opened, revealing an unexpected scene. Instead of the empty car he'd anticipated, Jonathan found himself facing a middle-aged Hispanic woman in a cleaning uniform and a small boy who couldn't have been more than 7 years old. "Buenos dias," the woman said softly, moving aside to make room. Jonathan nodded tersely, stepping into the elevator and pressing 47. The woman had already selected the 23rd floor. As the doors closed, Jonathan found himself confined with strangers, something he usually avoided. The boy stared at him with large, curious brown eyes that held an intensity Jonathan found unsettling. There was something familiar about the child's gaze, though he couldn't place what. The elevator climbed smoothly past the 10th floor, then the 15th. Then, at the 21st floor, everything changed. A grinding metallic sound echoed through the elevator shaft, followed by a sudden jolt that sent all 3 passengers stumbling. The lights flickered once, twice, then settled into an ominous dim glow as the elevator car ground to a complete stop. Jonathan immediately pressed every button on the panel. Nothing. The elevator remained motionless, suspended somewhere between floors. He pulled out his phone, no signal. The building's steel structure was blocking his connection. "Excuse me," he said to the woman, "do you have cell service?" She checked her phone and shook her head. "No, senor. Nada." Jonathan pressed the emergency call button. A crackling voice came through, "Building maintenance. We're aware of the situation. Could be anywhere from 30 minutes to a few hours, sir." A few hours. The Morrison deal represented 18 months of preparation. If he missed this presentation, his rival Mitchell Harrison would likely step in to close the deal. "Mommy, I need to use the bathroom," the boy whispered. The woman, Rosa Martinez, looked helplessly around the small elevator car. "Aguante un poco, okay?" Jonathan found himself studying the boy more closely. There was something about his expressions that struck him as achingly familiar. "Uncle," the boy said suddenly, addressing Jonathan directly in clear English. "Why do you look sad?" The question caught Jonathan completely off guard. "I'm not sad. I'm just focused." The boy steadied him with unsettling intensity. "My T.O. David used to make that same face. Mama said he was sad inside but pretended he wasn't." "Don't bother the gentleman, Miguel," Rosa warned softly. But Jonathan found himself drawn into the conversation. "Your Uncle David?" "See. He was Mama's brother. He died when I was little, but I remember him a little bit." Miguel's face grew serious. "He always wore suits like you and carried papers everywhere. Mama said he worked too much and forgot to be happy." The description hit closer to home than Jonathan cared to admit. "What happened to him?" Rosa's expression grew pained. "Car accident. 5 years ago. David he was a good man, but yes, he worked very hard. Too hard, maybe." An hour passed. Then another. Jonathan had long since accepted that he would miss the Morrison presentation. Miguel had become increasingly talkative, and Jonathan surprised himself by encouraging the conversation. Uncle, do you have kids? Miguel asked. No, Jonathan replied. Why not? You seem old enough. Jonathan almost smiled at the child's directness. I've been too busy with work. That's what Mama said about T.O. David. She said he was always too busy to find a wife and have babies. Miguel looked thoughtful. But then he got the accident and couldn't do anything anymore. The observation struck Jonathan like a physical blow. How many relationships had he avoided in pursuit of career advancement? Did your uncle look like me? Jonathan asked, surprising himself. Miguel studied him seriously. A little bit. But mostly he had sad eyes like you. Even when he smiled, his eyes stayed sad. Miguel, that's not polite, Rosa said. But Jonathan was fascinated by the boy's perceptiveness. What makes you think my eyes are sad? Miguel shrugged. They just are. Mama taught me to notice when people are hurting inside. Your mama sounds very smart, Jonathan said. Miguel, Jonathan asked carefully, what was your uncle's last name? Martinez. David Martinez. Mama has pictures of him in our apartment. Jonathan's heart began to pound. Describe him. He was tall like you, and he had dark hair that was always perfect. And he wore really nice watches. Oh. And he had a scar on his chin from when he fell off his bike as a kid. Jonathan reached up and touched the small scar on his own chin. Rosa, what was your maiden name? Martinez. Why do you ask? Jonathan stared at Miguel, seeing his own childhood features reflected back. Rosa, I think David was my brother too. The elevator car fell silent. Rosa stared at Jonathan as if he'd spoken in a foreign language. That's impossible. David didn't have any family. Jonathan pulled out his wallet and showed Rosa his driver's license. Jonathan David Gray. I was born Jonathan David Martinez. I legally changed my name 15 years ago. Rosa's hands trembled. But David said he had no family. Why would he lie? Because I told him I never wanted to see him again. Miguel looked between the adults, confusion clear on his face. Uncle, are you saying you're really my T.O. David? No, Mijo. I'm saying David was my brother. Which would make me your real uncle. Rosa began to cry, quiet, shocked tears. Tell me about the accident, Jonathan said softly. David was driving home from work late one night. It was raining, and his car went off the bridge. They never found his body. She looked at Jonathan accusingly. He was acting strange for weeks before that. Said he needed to fix something about family. Miguel, how old are you? 7. I'll be 8 next month. Rosa, who is Miguel's father? Rosa's face crumpled. David. David was Miguel's father. I was pregnant when the accident happened, but I didn't know it yet. The revelation hit Jonathan like a physical blow. This wasn't just his nephew, this was his brother's son. Did David know? No. I found out 2 weeks after the funeral. I was going to tell him, we had plans to maybe get married. Jonathan stared at Miguel, seeing not just his brother in the boy's features, but their father, their shared ancestry. We had a fight, Jonathan said quietly. A terrible fight about money, about choices. Our parents died when I was 22 and David was 20, leaving us with debt. The memory was vivid. David wanted to keep our parents' house. It was falling apart, worth almost nothing. I wanted to sell it, use the money to pay off debts and start fresh. Rosa listened intently. We couldn't agree. I said terrible things, that he was naive, that he'd never amount to anything. He said I cared more about money than family. Jonathan's throat tightened. The last thing I said was that I didn't want a brother who would drag me down. Why después? Rosa asked. After that, nothing. I moved to New York, changed my name, built a new life. David tried to call me a few times. Left messages I never returned. Miguel had been listening with serious attention. "Tio Jonathan, were you mad at my papa when he died?" "Yes," Jonathan whispered. "I was still mad at him. And now I can never tell him I'm sorry." Miguel considered this with profound wisdom. "Maybe you can tell him sorry by being nice to me and Mama." The suggestion broke something open in Jonathan's chest. He began to cry for the first time since his parents' funeral. Rosa reached out and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "David forgave you. In the last weeks before he died, he kept saying he needed to fix things with his family." The elevator lurched suddenly, then began moving upward. The lights brightened, and normal operation resumed. "We've restored normal function," came the voice through the intercom. "We apologize for the inconvenience." After 3.5 hours trapped together, the prospect of freedom felt anticlimactic. Jonathan wasn't ready for this to end. The elevator stopped at the 23rd floor. Rosa gathered her supplies while Miguel picked up his backpack. "This is our stop," Rosa said, but made no move toward the doors. "Rosa, I know this is overwhelming. But please don't disappear." Jonathan pulled out his business card and wrote his personal number on the back. "Call me anytime, day or night." Rosa took the card, studying it. "Gray and Associates. You're important there?" "I'm a senior partner, but none of that matters compared to this. To you and Miguel." Miguel suddenly pushed the button to hold the doors open. "Tio Jonathan, will you come to my birthday party next month? Mama makes really good cake." Jonathan's throat constricted. "I would love to come, Miguel. If your mama says it's okay." Rosa looked between Jonathan and her son. "Okay. We'll talk more. But slow, in teens?" "I understand completely." As they stepped off, Miguel turned back. "Tio Jonathan? I'm glad the elevator broke today." "Me too, Mijo." "Me too." Jonathan's assistant Rachel nearly fell out of her chair when he walked into the office disheveled and red-eyed. "The Morrison Group meeting. How did it go?" Mitchell stepped in and closed the deal. "I'm so sorry, sir." "It's fine, Rachel. Actually, it's better than fine. Cancel my appointments for the rest of the day." In his office, Jonathan stared at Rosa's simple business card: Martinez Cleaning Services, honest work, fair prices. He made 2 calls. First, to establish an education trust fund in Miguel Martinez's name. Second, to hire Martinez Cleaning for all their building maintenance, with a significant increase in compensation. That evening, Jonathan drove to Queens and knocked on apartment 3B. Miguel opened the door, face lighting up. "Tio Jonathan." "Mama," he came. Over dinner, Miguel regaled Jonathan with stories while Rosa shared memories of David. The picture that emerged was of a man who had found peace in service to others. "He sounds like he became exactly the man he was meant to be," Jonathan said. "The only sadness I ever saw in him was when he talked about family he'd lost touch with," Rosa replied. As the evening wound down, Miguel fell asleep on the couch between them. "He's never done that with anyone before," Rosa whispered. Jonathan looked down at his nephew and felt something click into place. "Rosa, I want to do right by Miguel. By both of you. But I don't know how to be family. Family isn't something you know how to do. It's something you choose to do, every day." Over the following months, Jonathan's life transformed radically. He began leaving the office at reasonable hours to spend time with Rosa and Miguel. He attended soccer games, helped with homework, and slowly understood what David had tried to tell him about what truly mattered. Mitchell Harrison took advantage of Jonathan's new priorities to position himself for managing partner. In the past, this would have sent Jonathan into overdrive. Now, he cared more about Miguel's upcoming birthday than corporate politics. Miguel's 8th birthday party was small but joyful. Jonathan's gift was both a chemistry set and an education fund that would ensure Miguel could attend any college. "This is too much," Rosa protested. "It's what David would have wanted." "It's what I want." Miguel looked between the adults. Does this mean I can be a scientist and a superhero? You can be anything you want to be, Mijo, Jonathan assured him. 6 months later, Jonathan stood in his office as his phone rang. T.O. Jonathan. I won the science fair. That's fantastic, Miguel. I'm so proud of you. Can you come to the award ceremony tomorrow? It's at 2 o'clock. Jonathan checked his calendar, an important client meeting. The old Jonathan would have disappointed Miguel. I'll be there. Front row. That afternoon, walking with Miguel after school, the boy asked, "Do you think Papa would be proud of me winning?" Jonathan knelt to eye level. "Miguel, your father would be incredibly proud. Not just for winning, but for being kind and smart and curious. I wish I could remember him better. Would you like me to tell you stories about when we were kids?" Miguel's eyes lit up. "Really? You'll tell me about when Papa was little?" "As many stories as you want to hear." 1 year after the elevator incident, Jonathan made a decision that surprised everyone. He left Gray and Associates to start his own firm, Martinez Gray Financial Services, focusing on helping middle-class families build wealth. "You're sure about this?" Rosa asked as Jonathan signed the lease for his modest new office. "I've never been more sure. David spent his career helping people build better lives. I want to do the same thing, just with different tools." Miguel, now 9, watched with his characteristic intensity. "Will you still be rich if you help regular people?" Jonathan laughed. "I'll have enough, Miguel. And more importantly, I'll have work that means something." The new firm grew slowly but steadily. Miguel became a regular fixture after school, doing homework and asking endless questions about money. "You know what, T.O. Jonathan? I think I want to learn about money and helping people. Maybe I can do both like you do. I think that's a wonderful idea. Your father would love knowing you want to help people." 3 years later, Jonathan stood at the grand opening of the David Martinez Community Center, funded by his firm's success. Miguel, now 12, cut the ribbon. "My dad would have loved this place," Miguel told the gathered crowd. "He always said that helping one family helps the whole community." After the ceremony, Jonathan and Rosa stood before a memorial wall dedicated to David's memory. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if that elevator hadn't broken down?" Rosa asked. Jonathan considered the question. Without that mechanical failure, he never would have discovered Miguel's existence, never learned about David's death, never found his way back to family. "I think David arranged it somehow," he said. "I think he was still trying to fix things between us." Miguel appeared beside them. "T.O. Jonathan, do you think Papa knows about the center?" "I think he knows about everything, Mijo. And I think he's proud of the man you're becoming." As they walked to their cars, Miguel asked, "Why do you look happy now instead of sad like before?" Jonathan smiled, remembering that first question in the broken elevator. "Because I learned that success isn't about what you build for yourself, Miguel. It's about what you build for the people you love." The elevator that had trapped him for 3.5 hours had actually set him free from isolation, free from guilt, and free to discover that the family he thought he'd lost forever had been waiting for him all along. Sometimes the wrong elevator stops at exactly the right floor. Sometimes getting trapped is the beginning of finding your way home. And sometimes a child's simple question can break open a heart that's been closed for far too long. Sometimes the best way to find your way up is to get stuck somewhere unexpected.